Okay, so I've recorded this once already and had problems that it had wouldn't download properly, so we're trying again. And I'm already a little bit late with posting it, and I apologize for that. I've had a house full of people this weekend for MLK holiday weekend, so it's been a little chaotic for trying to record. And actually, as we're doing this, they may be returning, so I'm going to apologize right now if it gets crazy while I'm doing this. Hopefully, it won't happen. Um, anyway, I'm really, really pleased with everything you have done with the introductory unit. I'm glad that you've been spending time introducing yourselves and interacting with each other in the forums. I think this makes it more comfortable. You're going to have to be commenting to each other in all of our discussion forums, which means talking about what your classmates are saying, feeling comfortable with them commenting on your posts. So, getting to know each other a little bit, I think, is an important part of that process, and I'm really pleased you have gotten into that. But now we're ready for Unit 1, our first content unit. In Unit 1, you have to read Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of your textbook. Chapter 1 is about the pre-Columbian societies, so the societies and ethnic and racial groups before the conquest. So in there, you'll be reading about the Mayans and their precursors, about the Aztec and the same, about the Incan society in South America, and also a bit about the types of indigenous societies that were in the Americas at the time of conquest. Because those three major societies, major imperial societies, were definitely not the only one. There were perhaps thousands of language groups and many different types of indigenous populations. You'll also be learning about the Spaniards and the Portuguese and their societies pre-conquest, and then also some of the African societies. And some people think, why do we need to learn about Africa and studying Latin America? And what many people don't realize is that during the time period of the Atlantic slave trade, there were actually many more slaves brought into Latin America, particularly Brazil and Cuba, than there were into the British North American colonies and later the United States. So Africans made a significant contribution to the formation of society in Latin America. So as you're reading this, really what I want you to do is keep an open mind, because when we tend to think about the pre-Columbian indigenous societies, I think a lot of the first things that come to mind are things like their religions, that they were polytheistic, so they worshipped many gods, and as a part of this worshiping of these many gods, they practiced human sacrifice. Not all of them did, not all to a great extent. The Aztecs did to the greatest extent. But what we don't always think about is how advanced these societies were. Their writing systems, their mathematical systems, their knowledge of astronomy. We don't think about their vast trade networks and the regions they can control and their transportation. We don't think about the beauty of the societies, which even the conquistadors remarked upon time and time again. So try and keep an open mind when learning about these societies and what they could contribute to the newly formed cultures and societies, and then also what would be lost from these as these societies were decimated by the conquest. And that's chapter 2. Chapter 2 talks about the conquest. So starting with Christopher Columbus. But Christopher Columbus was only such a small part of that. It's always amazing to me that we celebrate him with a holiday when really he had only a minuscule part. I guess he was the first to discover. I like to say encounter, because he was encountering people who were already there. This new world, but he never stepped foot in what is our present country. He was primarily responsible for the founding of Cuba, of Puerto Rico, of Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic, and Haiti, and the decimation of the populations there, millions upon millions dead. We'll be learning about the other major conquerors and what they did. You have Hernan Cortez, primarily in Mexico and the area of New Spain. You have Francisco Pizarro in the Incan Empire, and then those that spread out from there. So, what I want you to be thinking about really with this chapter is how these societies or how these groups that were really so much smaller, only a few hundred Spaniards up to a couple of thousand, were able to conquer these empires of millions upon millions of people. And a lot of people's initial reaction is superior weapons. They had steel, they could move ahead that way. But what I want you to be thinking about is all the different things that contributed. So, yes, we have steel, we have guns, and we have steel armor. You have horses, you have disease, you have Indian allies. And I want you to be thinking about what you think were the major contributors to this. And that is really part of what your discussion prompt is. To discuss it in a pre-Columbian indigenous society and then how and why you were able to be conquered. You have a reading also, one document from the Colonial Lives book this time, just one, that talks about environmental changes. And this is a part of chapter 2 also, the Columbian exchange and what would be changed with this interaction of the old world and the new, the quote-unquote new world. The transport and exchange of plants and animals and people and diseases. And so how that would work to create new cultures, partially by basically eliminating some of the old ones. Okay, so that's what we're covering in the chapters. You will have a quiz for chapter 1 and a quiz for chapter 2. I will have those posted in the next couple of days and linked in the module. You also then, of course, have the discussion forum. When you go to the discussion forums, please make sure you click on full discussion. When you do that, it gives you the instructions, pretty explicit instructions for how to do the forum, and it also gives you the prompt for what we will be discussing in the forum. As always, if you have any questions, post them in the general discussion forum, or you can email me directly. Have a good day.